Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cybersecurity Recruiter podcast. Today, I'm joined by Craig Adams. How you doing, my friend?
Good, Thomas. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, likewise. Nice to see you. Nice to record this for everyone listening. Me and Craig are doing this on a Friday. The listeners are probably going to catch us both in a half-decent mood, mate. What do you reckon?
Friday is just an opportunity to reset before you catch up over the weekend and start another week. So it's all one giant.
Yeah. I had this pipe dream once because I'm working in different parts of the world, but I'm pretty much just dealing with the US market. So I was like, okay, well, if I'm on the phone till 3 a.m. every night, I'm going to start taking Fridays off. But in the world of recruitment, so many final interviews are on a Friday. You get to know people. It was the most ridiculous pipe dream I've ever thought of, and it never really happened. But there you go.
We all catch up on things. It's when you perhaps move from the urgent, which dominates the Monday through Thursday for many of us, or Sunday through Wednesday, depending on where you work in the world, to the flip side of you catch up on the things that you should have been doing all week, but were distracted by the urgent ones.
Cool, mate. It's great. Nice to see you. I'm just going to do you a bit of an intro. If I get any of this wrong, feel free to correct me. But it started off many moons ago in technical pre-sales, progressed a long way since then. You were then at Camea Technologies, got promoted so many times, started off as a technical consultant, went to a manager, senior manager, director, VP, SVP, so did really well in that role. You were then at Recorded Future, Chief Product and Engineering Officer. You are currently a board member at Peak Metrics, and you are also the Chief Product Officer at Rapid7. Welcome to the show.
I think you hit a great summary.
Cool. Yeah, all good. I know I've done you a bit of an intro there, but I'll start off where I always start, which is who are you, what do you get up to, and what's a day in the life like at the minute?
Yeah, so at my core, I'm a builder who loves working with other builders, focusing on how do you drive revenue growth through technology. If you look at the history of product and engineering, one brutal truth is that most things people build aren't leveraged. They don't get the return at the end of the day. They disappoint. Just like most acquisitions fail at the end of the day. They don't get the strategic synergies we're hoping for. I'm obsessed around how do you use technology to drive business growth. And if you do it the right way, your customers are happy to pay for that innovation. So both they benefit through the outcomes they get and the company benefits through the return they get.
Cool. Okay, great. Yeah. So you've seen it done well a lot, and you've maybe seen both sides of the coin then.
One of the benefits of experience is we learn from our mistakes. Good people tend not to make the same mistake twice. Absolutely. I've seen the power when innovation is done the right way. I've also seen it when you build something, do something just because you can, not because the market needs it, the customer needs it, or that you have a right to win in that space.
Yeah, okay. So getting the product to really drive revenue and ultimately making it a success in the markets, getting that right is like the $1 million thing to get right, if you like. Is it comprising of, and you'll know better than me, but you're looking at product market fit, you're looking at market, what does it comprise of?
Yeah, so first, there's multiple things, but I'll tell you an obsession that I have, which is every organization has to have a why me, why now. So the why now hits where you're going of product market fit. It talks about why is this a problem above other problems or above other opportunities you should capture in the organization. What's the urgency behind it? So you got to nail the why now. And the second part is the why me, which is in every piece of technology or frankly, every service that an organization is offering, there's always going to be alternatives. And so being really thoughtful about your both differentiation strategy, your competitive advantage that you want to build. If you obsess on those two things, the why me, why now, you can solve 80% of it. Then there's this minor thing called execution, which is you actually have to build, sell, support, onboard, all those other fun things that make customers successful. You walk around RSA or any trade show, you'll see everything sounds the same. Every single booth has 40 words rearranged in different orders. One of the biggest ones is AI these days everywhere, whether it's now in the company name, product name, booth name. So breaking out of the noise becomes critical. You do that, though, if you're doing it the right way, not through a clever marketing slogan, but rather through the core competency, capabilities, outcomes you're designing for your customers and clients.
There might not be any initial quick, there might be, but there might not be any initial quick wins there. But over time, I think in a busy space over time as well, that compounds and it amplifies and that comes through eventually.
I believe markets are efficient overall. And you're absolutely right. You may see a different adoption curve, but we're not at a point where so much technology adoption is done through recommendation, peer-to-peers, otherwise, that if you do something really well and do it, yes, someone will nose try. Your early adopters are always the most precious, hard to find. But after that, usually the people that you bring incredible value to are happy to sing your praises to others. And that's when the snowball effect begins. But you got to focus on what you're actually doing right and making sure that the customer is truly at the center of your design.
I just think over the last few years, it's really helped product security. Like I've done a lot of recruitment for certain product security vendors, and I hear a lot of things in the market, as I'm sure you do. But when I've heard from different CISOs that have purchased different product security offers, generally speaking, they've been pretty pleased. Like I was listening, there was one chap I went out for dinner with recently. He's a director of security of a huge global organization. He recently purchased a product, and he was telling me, senior network pen tester, it took one of his really good testers 2.5, 3 weeks to do this assessment. The product did it in 60 minutes, same report, same findings. And I know that wasn't always that good, but it seems to, as of late, got really good, a lot of these products.
Yeah, it has. But I think that example was a perfect one because I think it's gotten good at certain things. And so let's take a second here. What you just described is both identifying risk and verdicting risk. Those two things, I think AI has got credible about. So if the old thing you were trying to do was identify an exposure, a risk, a threat in your environment, score it in some particular ways, it's malicious, not malicious, AI is really good at that. The problem with that is most security teams were already struggling with the amount of risk they had identified in their organization. Take Mythos as a great example. It's incredible at uncovering vulnerabilities, exposures inside of your environment. The typical organization was already drowning in vulnerabilities and exposures inside the environment. So with respect, yes, identifying more, the IEI is very effective and does it. What we've now done is just clog the pipe even more. So what we're going to find is the challenge with cybersecurity squarely now has moved for identification to a remediation focus. So I think this notion of identifying risk, scoring risk, that's going to become commoditized across the horizon. The real challenge that organizations are going to have is great. Now, how do I respond and remediate? And this is one where you start seeing how much control do I want to get AI around my organization to actually take things offline, disconnect access systems. This is going to be the zone where security teams more than ever are going to be looking for help, is how do I respond to the threats that exist?
Yeah, definitely. And by the way, what you've just said, like you're seeing that with bug bounty, like bug bounty's getting hammered at the minute. That space, I don't know, like that space is probably maybe the most affected.
There's so many, I'll call it Gartner acronyms from the past that are going to be impacted by changes to discovery, changes to verdicting. It's just, there's a difference because you've identified something. That is the first step. Knowledge is half the battle. And you're not actually safe as an organization until you've done something about it. And so I think that's where security teams are going to spend time focusing the most. In organizations that rally and realize that identification was never the customer's problem. That's never the totality of what they were trying to do. To complete their workflow, they need to remediate. They need to respond to the threat that happens across the org.
Yeah, no, definitely. And also as well, probably like deciding what they are going to be, what triaging essentially, and what's going to be classed as needing to be fixed and what isn't. Because if you bombard people outside of security with too many findings and nothing, they soon become immune to it, don't they?
Yeah, and that's a problem we already had, and now it's 3 times worse. So that's what AI has done with just first, is an incredible service for organizations to truly see things across their environment. And take your example, like a pen test earlier, where most organizations in a cost-effective way couldn't identify and do pen testing at the frequency that they would want to do. It's radically changed the curve. Now, I'm doing pen tests. I'm finding more exposures. I'm finding issues I need to fix inside of my environment. The hockey puck has moved to an area where response is the next horizon. That's what organizations are going to obsess about.
So what do you think, Craig? Do you think products should be evolving more towards the remediation space, or should they be just making it more easy to work out what is important that's been identified? Or what do you think the answer is moving forward for product?
2 parts. First, binary yes to your question, which is absolutely one of the philosophies I've always had with product engineering design is your goal is to complete the workflow. And so workflow is, in a customer's own words, what are they trying to do from beginning to end? Anytime that you just do a part of the workflow, which is identify threat risk inside an environment, it's helpful. That doesn't complete the workflow at the end of the day. So whether you're in cybersecurity or any other software marketing organization you're focused on, completing the workflow has to be your goal, because that's when you actually unlock real value for your customer. The second piece then, if you said, great, now I need to do more response, what is that going to look like? There's a strong belief that the organizations that have the broadest set of response capabilities are going to be the most effective at automating response at scale. Let's give an obvious example. We know that when an identity is compromised, there's things that we can do from identification to automate response. I can isolate the identity, I can revoke access, I can make people reset passwords. All those things start falling over and we say, yes, but it's the CEO who's involved. And so immediately we insert humans in the loop, our journeys. And so in order to do response right, you're going to have to enable granular response in an agentic way. You're going to have to break the old model of SOAR, which is let me configure the 952 rules I want to do across an environment, because that doesn't scale. And you're going to have to enable what I'm going to call it the most robust set, a breadth of response options, so that organizations can find, identify, and then tackle it in the way that allows them to be successful.
There's a lot happening, Craig, isn't there? I'm imagining now there must be so many pivots being made and so much adaptability required. And if you've just been finding stuff, and it must be beautiful, organized chaos for everyone.
It is. I think if there's one truth in technology, and it sounds trite, but if you're not changing, you're dying. And so there's this fundamental view, as we are at a time of profound change, I would say across the technology industry, change in how technology is created, change in how customers are consuming technology, change in evaluation and buying criteria. And so those that are going to be successful are going to lean in, embrace the change, and focus on the outcomes their customers want. Those organizations are going to struggle, or those are going to be reactive, responding, adjusting to each individual piece of the journey. But for a builder, this is a beautiful time to be in the industry. This is as good as it gets. I would so much rather be competing on a playing field. Speaking of the World Cup kicking off as we speak, I would so much rather be on a playing field that's dynamic in nature, rather one that is fixed, unchanging, and rigid in how it operates. That's when builders thrive.
Yeah, it's a fascinating time. I think I said it to you before when we were chatting this. If you go back just 3 or 4 years ago, like things literally seem boring compared to what they're like now. I was speaking to a VP the other day telling me that he's having arguments with his wife because he finishes work and he's just like looking at this, looking at that. She's like, what are you doing in that home office? And he's like, no, you don't understand like this. But that's what it's like at the minute.
We need to say it in an objective way. The pace of change. So when we talked about change earlier, the pace of change right now is just so dramatic. And so one of the things we often see this reflected in the product management and engineering nerd circles I'm in is, how long do you plan on your roadmaps? X years ago, the gold standard was you got to have your 3-year roadmap. You got to have the 3 years of what you're going to do across horizons. Now we're in a model where it's a universal accepted truth. That time horizon is shrunk down. You still need to have your vision of where you're going as an organization, but actually planning out your execution, you're working in 9-month increments at the peak end of the spectrum. So still a long-term vision, still a strategy for the why me, why now, or a thesis that you're operating under. But actually what work units you're planning, anything beyond a 9-month horizon is purely wasted effort from work effort planning. You're focusing on a narrow term.
Suits you though, I can tell. I can just tell by the way you're talking, like, love it.
I can't imagine the world where you're existing purely for the purpose of pushing code from one stage to another. If we go back to AI for a second, one of the magical things that makes this time so exciting is you're already starting to see the shift of humans calling AI versus AI calling the humans. We're just in a world for like how work is being done is so fundamentally different that X months ago or X years ago, it would be human going out to AI, asking it to do something, run a pen test, to go back to our earlier conversations out of my environment. Now, man, you're setting up agents that they're notifying you that a pen test has been done. There's something that you need to do. The machine has officially taken over, but that level of dynamicism, that's exciting.
Yeah, no, it is. I used to find it so easy to keep up, whereas now I feel like I'm on it more than ever, and I'm constantly listening to this, listening to that, trying to learn as much from guys like you, Craig, as I can. But even with all that, and I'm quite an obsessive guy as well, but it's still pretty hard.
This is one of the things when we talk about what do we look for when we hire. So I have a strong belief that there are three things I look for when I hire. The first is attitude. You can't replace it. Even in a world that the machines are doing more and more things, attitude matters. It's contagious. It's what forms teams and creates a snowball effect how teams work. The second is work ethic. Work ethic, I don't mean the 3 a.m. call or working every weekend. I actually mean when someone's working with intensity. The final area is intelligence. And this is where you can get into a debate of how do you assess intelligence. My strong belief, the hill I'll die on, is intelligence isn't defined by a score, your academic institution. It's defined by your curiosity at the end of the day. So when I'm interviewing candidates, I'm assessing their intelligence based on how curious they are about how something works, how willing they are to dive in and learn something. I'll take the person that went to a unprestigious university who's curious over the person with a fancy degree every day of the week and twice on Tuesday. And in an AI world where so much is changing, having constant curiosity is a key for an individual to be successful. And as a leader, we know that we have to create safe spaces so that people can learn and not be embarrassed around it. That means open forums where team members are sharing with others. It means office hours where people can go and get help and tutoring along the way. Because truthfully, the biggest risk to every organization, in my opinion, is not going to be what happens when something goes wrong. It's going to be the lack of AI adoption. Period. I religiously believe that unless organizations are aggressive about how do they truly curate, drive adoption, they're going to miss the innovation cycle that their competitors will. And then the why now piece will get lost.
Okay. Thanks, Kay. It's really interesting to listen to you talk there, and it's listen to you. I love your approach to hiring, by the way, and it's really interesting to hear it. And some of the stuff you're saying there about intelligence, work ethic, and curiosity, AI is, in the grand scheme of things, I know it's been around for a while, but it's recently been heavily democratized.
It is, yes.
And it's like stuff that you've said, like curiosity, work ethic, because it's happening so fast, I think everything you've said is becoming more and more amplified, because if it's moving 10 times as fast as it used to and someone's curious, that person's getting ahead 10 times as fast as the person that's not curious. So it's like everything's just going up and up. And also, I'm sure you've noticed it as well, like when you've got deep research through Perplexity or you're using chat or you're using Claude, you can learn so quick. And I speak to a lot of hackers that are watching exploit code being built in front of them, and no one's ever taken the time to go that deep. So all of a sudden you've got these red teamers that are now phenomenal at producing exploit code, and they never used to be. So it's like, it's creating a separation, I think.
It's creating a separation. And I think it goes full circle back to our conversation on discovery and verdicting. Those that want information and now have access to it in a dramatically different timeline pace than ever before, which then believes, how do I want information? How do I stay in the zone where I'm constantly being able to identify, look, and see? That's the piece that will become the most pronounced yet. And again, organizations that are harnessing it, that are building curiosity inside of their team, that are helping people make the transition. And quite candidly, if someone is unwilling to be a learner, so they're not demonstrating their intelligence capability, replacing them with someone who can, which is a hard, brutal truth, But that's going to make work successful. That's what's going to be so critical at the end.
Yeah, it is. And when you mentioned there about the information and we can access it quicker, I can't remember whether I said this on another pod or whether I was just talking about it, but if we don't go back that long ago, like the education and information, it was saved for like the very, very rich. Even not so long ago, like you had to go to a library, you had to go. So yeah, it's easier than ever, which I think overall it's an amazing thing. But I think sometimes it's for someone maybe a bit younger than me in the UK, sometimes they might be, because it's always been there, but it's like that is a real privilege and it should be taken full advantage.
And I think one of the interesting human attributes is in a time where information is exploding. If you look at content created, defined as like web pages, and coming up with a crude definition of content in this example, it continues to explode. What becomes critical is shifting between information sharing and analysis at the end. And so this is one of those things of, do the machines fully replace all humans as an organization? I don't think so. Just to be super clear, the machines can make recommendations, but we're going to find that the ability that humans have to do analysis on organizations, understand intent, future directions, that's going to be what matters the most. It's if you're trying to project a trend line of a customer interest across a horizon, that ability to go through and say, this is what customers were looking for in the past. This is what they're getting now. What are they going to want in the future? AI is not going to be great at that. You're just going to have a different analytical muscle that our humans are demonstrating in this AI world.
Yeah, because it's not great with context yet anyway, is it? It creates gaps, tries to fill them in, and if you know what you're doing, you can spot it a mile off, but that's the danger if you don't.
Imagine researching a stock at the end of the day. Oh my goodness. You can get all of the information you possibly need that, back to our time, used to be limited and accessible to only a select few. You still got to make a call of what to do at the end of the day. Do I want to buy this? Do I not want to buy this? And yes, some may go through and say, I want to outsource all of that in its totality. Others are going to say, I'd like to have a little bit of judgment for the things that are most important to me, which our treasure tends to be things that fall in that bucket.
I mean, you say stuff like that, Craig, as well, should alleviate a lot of worry and stress for people, because there's a certain demographic of people that are really worried about it. I happen to think commercially there's so much opportunity. I think for the people that are wanting to learn and adapt, I think there's boatloads of opportunity. But for people out there that are worried, like I use an example in recruitment. Like if someone had told me years ago that by and large, all employers are going to have the same data as recruiters because of LinkedIn, I'd swear blind that recruitment agencies wouldn't exist. Like when you think, hang on, we've all got the same people, like why are people paying fees still? But obviously it doesn't quite work out like that. But it's the same as what you're saying, like the reality isn't quite how it looks when it's black and white.
No, I think the brutal truth is there will be a massive disruption. So with every technical innovation that's existed across time, we've seen incredible changes in what jobs exist. We haven't yet hit the spectrum where the number of jobs decreasing. There was a great piece of research out, and I'm blanking on who to give credit for it, so I apologize, but the article essentially was around the next $1 trillion software company is going to be a services organization. And I actually subscribe to that belief, and the why behind it is critical, which is as we look at the end, back to our conversation of completing workflow, completing an end-to-end journey, AI is going to enable us to do certain pieces of a workflow faster. Find a candidate, research a stock, find a vulnerability in an environment. But actually completing the workflow is going to still require a human to be involved at the end of the day, is my strong belief. And so, sure, can technology make services more efficient? Absolutely. No debate, just to be super, super clear. And we're going to have this environment where the opportunity is just so pronounced for people that own the outcome, companies that own the outcome at the end of the day, not just pieces of information along the way. That's where I subscribe to that. Next $1 trillion company is going to be a service organization. And by the way, we're not talking about SpaceX. That's a different conversation for a different time.
Yes. As you've mentioned SpaceX going on, we'll say I saw an article yesterday and it said that the people working in the cafeteria are probably going to become millionaires off the IPO, which I thought was quite a cool story.
I will call it changing opportunities. I also think it goes to show the people that work in the cafeteria. SpaceX was well known that you could allocate a portion of your salary into the company. And so I think the real lesson is, even if the cafeteria worker got a stock option at the end of the day, is that those that are willing to take risks and truly invest in the company and not just treat it like a transactional arrangement of, I go to work, you pay me, I don't steal, I do my job. Not just that reciprocal at the skin level, but actually co-own the outcome. Those are going to be wildly successful at the end. And so the cafeteria worker, the person that was picking things outside of an environment when a rocket came down and was picking the rocket material out of the water, bodies of water, all of those people that invested in the outcome, that's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, cool. When I listen to you speaking about the change and like it's such an exciting, like you mentioned how exciting it is for like building's your real passion and it's a really exciting time. It makes me realize just like being at a more, not necessarily a really small, being at a small or a mid-size company, you can see what it is more agile. It is obviously going to be like, if I was a really huge company, maybe it's a bit of a scary time for some of them because you need to be able to, if you're more agile, it could be quite advantageous at the minute, couldn't it?
You actually hit a leadership attribute, which I think can exist in big and small companies, which is creating mission-driven teams that own things. Because really, when we think of a small company, in our head, what we jump to is, I'm in a small group of people, we own this mission together, and I'm passionate driving it. When we say big company, we tend to think of a cog in a wheel, which is the opposite of a mission-driven team. I'm a big believer, even at big companies, you can create these incredible mission-driven teams if you both structure it, charter it, metric, inspect it, leader it the right way. Organizations that do that, whether they're big and small, they'll thrive. Organizations that take for granted the sense of purpose that an individual has in order to truly be successful, those are going to be some that are going to struggle perhaps more than others.
Yeah, I see it all the time when I'm talking to people. I pretty much just work at the senior end of the market, and you realize the more you get up, if people think it's all about money and they've got a rude awakening, there's an anticlimax there to come, and the purpose piece is just
I think, in my own words, money matters, but mandate matters more than money. And that notion of mandate, what are we actually trying to do at the end of the day? Because when we go back to the world of placement, no one's looking just to fill a role. So if someone's looking to hire a chief product officer or a head of sales, they're actually not just looking to fill that role. They're looking for that person to do something, to lead a particular change throughout the organization. Or, but my goodness, if any of your listeners are hiring companies that are looking to fill a role and the mandate is keep things going the same, I respectfully wish you all the best. We know that's not the case. We know that doesn't exist. And so finding the right mandate match is, I think, critical in ensuring that there's a authentic fit at the end. It's one of the things when we go out to placement of people, we can look at someone's background. You can look at someone's domain expertise. You can look at someone's leadership attributes. But this notion of fit, I think sometimes it gets translated to, do they look like me, talk like me in some way? I strongly actually believe fit is more associated with what am I trying to do at the end of the day? And hey, does that person have a deeply held passion for the thing and the change I'm trying to drive? Again, not a skill, but an actual passion towards. That's fit.
Yeah, no, definitely. To your point on there, that is what I got taught in the early days of recruitment, is you pull on that string and find out what's really going on behind the role, the opportunity. And because, yeah, that's how you really find the right person. I think on the mission-driven thing as well, Craig, it's like some of the teams with the highest retention I've ever seen were literally like sizable teams where I'm talking like no one has ever left, and it's mission-driven.
Of course, we are not to get too philosophical for a second, but I have a deep held belief that humans need meaning. And we want meaning in our relationships outside of work, and we want meaning at work. And that means both that what the organization doing is thinks that matters to me, and that what I'm doing matters at the end of the day. Don't get me wrong. I have a mobile phone bill just like others do, a car that needs petrol or gas just like others do, and people thriving when they're able to find meaning in their work. And so great leaders are obsessed around mission-driven teams. They don't make it a checkbox. One litmus test I've always used is you actually know you have a mission-driven team when you can ask someone the mission and they can tell it to you.
Okay.
So for any executive out there who says, I do, because look, it's in the slide deck, go ask 3 people. They give you the answer back. Yep, you've got it. You've nailed it in. If they can't repeat it, you've done the corporate PowerPoint Google slide equivalent of a mission, but you're not actually living your mission as an organization.
No. Do you know what? I don't reckon on the whole there's too many companies where you just go to the team and they go bang and they know. I bet there's a lot that don't.
What I think you and I both know the overwhelming majority don't. And if we look at the why, it's not that leaders haven't attempted, is leaders often miss the thing that we all, those of us that are chosen to have kids and our parents, learn, which is repetition matters a lot. There's no such thing in a culture of a one and done. If you want to have a culture that's lived, strategic repetition, where you have to embrace the mindset that you have to be literally sick of saying something for someone to hear it for the first time, that's the mindset you've got to have when you're driving strategic repetition of culture.
Yeah, it is. Do you know what, because it's like doing this pod, there's a lot of stuff you're saying, and I'm like, yes, okay, I need to, because we're small at the minute, but we're steadily growing and stuff like that. And it's like, it's good because I'm listening, and a lot of this stuff's good for, and just slowing down and thinking and talking about, like, for me, I'm always rushing around and doing this, but when you stop and think about what actually gets you ticking, me ticking, everyone ticking, these things. And even though I don't want to get to it, but this stuff really matters. Really matters.
Outside of work too, use the almost funny example of telling someone that you love them. You could have said it last week, but that doesn't mean it's top of mind for an individual. It's something that has to be lived, something that you have to be repetitious in demonstration of for someone to truly feel it, believe it at the end of the day. So it's one of the things with work, and particularly leadership, is, well, of course, we're focused on outcomes from an organization. The act of leading inside of a company tends to make you better in your personal life as well. The old work, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. There's a why behind that, because the busy person understands how to approach something, how to tackle it, how to get it done, where perhaps the person less busy isn't going to have the same discipline, structure, approach, and as a result may not get done.
It's like having, which I can see you've got, by the way, a really heightened level of self-awareness. Like, that's ultimately what it is, what makes a great leader, I think.
Yeah, the tough thing, I agree with you. The tough thing, though, is a high level of self-awareness is both a blessing and a curse. Because it means you are both aware of when something's going well. You're also aware when something's not. People that have a heightened self-awareness don't always live in a happy place. It's not that they have negative self-esteem or otherwise. They just understand the potential, the opportunity in front of them at the end. But I do think in any teaming environment, maybe to go full circle for a second, if you had the EQ versus IQ debate of what actually needed for a leader to be successful, yes, we want high IQ leaders. We want people that are able to solve complex problems. But we've also seen the high IQ leader that actually can't lead, that can't bring a team along.
Okay.
And so they're the smart person in the corner, not the one leading the army or team to victory and success. And so it's my controversial belief that for leadership, EQ over IQ every day of the week, and the why isn't trivializing the importance of being thoughtful, disciplined, structured approach and how you approach problems. It's actually to the fundamental word of leadership of you got to create followership. Going back to our mission-driven teams for a second, a low EQ leader isn't doing that, period. They may be able to write down the great missions, but they're not going to ingrain it inside of their culture. They're not going to be able to assess it if it's actually being lived or not effectively at the end. So that's the piece that matters.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It needs to be relatable. Like you say, yeah, you talked about ingrained, like getting your hands dirty. Yeah, because there's too much of a distance there. No one's going to grind and really make it happen when they need to.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, I could see the self-awareness thing. It's like, you made me smile when you said it, because when you said blessing and a curse, because I've actually known some salespeople over the years that haven't actually got very good self-awareness, and they've actually done pretty well because they're really nice. They're just getting on with it. And yeah, maybe wouldn't have been the best leaders, but I've seen them do phenomenally well in a sales environment, funnily enough.
What you described, at least what I heard, is just persistence. And we've gone through vogue terms of different words. Is it grit? Is it persistence? Is it belief in yourself? Is it belief in future? All of those attributes reflect a case of a person that's not willing to accept something for what it is today, and instead is focused on bringing something they believe they can do over the future. And I do think you can have high self-awareness and a growth mindset that there's a different future, a different state ahead of you, rather than just what you're hitting today. That bias for action, successful people have it. They don't dwell on how they got here or where they're at. They dwell on how they're going to get to the next stage, what they're going to do differently, what they're going to do again, what they're going to learn.
Yeah, you mentioned it right at the top of the show when we were talking about product security. You said this, you joked and said, there's this little thing called execution. And it's, God, you've got to actually do it.
It's not enough to say the words. It's not enough to have an opinion. You have to go through each step of the journey, from to the salesperson reaching out on a phone call, from the demo, from the contract, from the first line of code written. But you actually just have to sit down and go. And I think people, to stick with this topic of growth mindset for a second, for the people that believe it's possible and that there's a way, combined with, I'll call it appropriate confidence. And that doesn't mean arrogance. Arrogance implies that you think you're better than everyone else. Arrogance is a comparison attached to it at the end of the day, a superiority. Confidence believes that someone can figure it out. So that belief of confidence with a growth mindset, that's what you need when you're executing. If you're someone that genuinely believes that you can do something better than everyone else on the planet, then you're in the arrogance zone, which I don't assume arrogance equals growth mindset, but confidence is a requirement for a growth mindset.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the belief piece is massive, because it's not always going to go to plan. It's not always going to go well. You're going to get setbacks, and the belief needs to kick in. All right, okay. We'll finish up with talking about who's going to win the World Cup. And I don't know much about football, by the way. Most people think I do because I'm a British guy. But yeah, the question I'd like to finish up with, I used to say, what book have you read that's had the big? It could be security. It could be anything that's made you the best version of yourself that could help the listeners. But it could be book. It could be podcast. Just anything that you've consumed.
I have a favorite that I will tell you has had the biggest impact on me and the biggest staying power. And the book was Extreme Ownership. And the premise was just very simple in a nutshell, which is, in any situation, you own it at the end of the day. And having this owner mindset is a dramatic piece where I believe most people fail at the end. And one of the examples in the book was a soldier who receives an order from a chain of command that makes no sense. Very easy to have the mindset of that person, he or she is a moron, or they're giving bad instructions. The extreme ownership says, I haven't given them the information they need in order to make the right call. I haven't done my part. And what's done well with extreme ownership as a concept is it often brings agency, it brings action in times when people perhaps feel less agency, action, or ownership at the end. And that, as a society, is that you're not a victim, that whatever happens, there's something you can do about it. Oh, that's powerful. And if someone has the courage and willingness to embrace it, virtually in any aspect of their life, then it leads to incredible outcomes.
Yeah, definitely. And the compound effect of that is you're going to be the best version of yourself.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I like it. I say recruitment, like when something goes wrong in a process, I always try and go, it's our fault. Just even if always have that, and it does make you better. I just always blame it on yourself. What could we have done?
The key is if you combine responsibility with action identification, because one thing about extreme ownership is it can be, I'll call it performative at the end of the day. It can be, someone goes on, it's my fault. It's my fault. That only, I believe, is healthy if you get to the, like, what would I have done differently? And if someone can connect the ownership to the action or the learning of how they will change it, then you're game on. Otherwise, it can become cosmetic. And critically, accepting ownership without action is like agreeing to be a parent without parenting. It doesn't work at the end of the day. The action, not the words, that matter. And so long as someone connects to the actions, that's key.
Cool. Great. Thank you, my friend. I know you're like a ridiculously busy man, so like I'm really happy that
You are as well. So I also appreciate the time. This was a lovely chat today.
Yeah, no, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you. And no, it's been just a really nice, natural chat. And I've genuinely really enjoyed it, mate. So thank you.
Likewise.